As we continue our focus on the EU-Africa Business Forum, Stefano Manservisi, Director General of the International Cooperation and Development at the European Commission, says youth in Africa must take in their hands their own destiny. Chris Bishop caught up with him on the sidelines of the EU-Africa Business Forum to discuss the European Union's focus on job creation in Africa.
Just to start off with, this has been very much your sort of brainchild. How much do you fear what could happen on this continent if nothing is done?
Well, I think that first this continent will in any case develop because we are not the only one which are part of this. I think that sometimes we are a bit Eurocentric in our thinking. Europe doesn't do and therefore Africa doesn't move. No, Africa is moving, and Africa is moving because it has energy and because it is somewhere in the international market. You know, there are other partners like China, like other investors which are there. Therefore, you know, simply I think that we have, let's say, several assets that we can mobilize in Africa. First, we know each other since years, since centuries. Second, we are very close to each other. We are the neighbor, the biggest neighbor to each other. And third, we have structure which sometimes are very similar. Look at the African Union. After all, the African Union, with all the differences, is thinking about the experience of our integration. The culture of the regional integration of the continental market is something which is mutuated by us. So, in the sense, we have a lot of commonality. Now, I think we have a lot of interest. You know, the business, the European business is close to Africa, and therefore I think that we have all the possibility to generate a further way of generating economic activity. Allow me to say also that in doing this, on the basis of our European model, we maybe take care more than others of values and sustainability, like solidarity, like compatibility with the respect of the environment, climate change related issues, agriculture which a human face, agriculture with added value in terms of valuing the small product also. We have the face of the producer. Mass production in the world is not the same thing. So, not to say that we are the exclusive one, but simply to say that we have a common base and we can develop further. Last point, Europeans are the biggest partner in trade, the biggest partners in foreign investment, the biggest partner on development assistance. So, we are already here. Therefore, if we do more and better, I think we'll be in the interest of everybody.
One or two of the African leaders I've spoken to still say they don't feel there was quite enough consultation on this plan when this plan was put together. What do you say to them?
No, I think one of the purposes of this summit is precisely to discuss also about this. You know, we consult actually, but it is clear that it's never enough. We consult in order to know what are the key elements in priority terms, in technical modality for implementations, which are useful and which are compatible with our rules. It is a EU instrument, it's not a common instrument, but it is an instrument it's at the disposal of our African friends. Therefore, why we accelerated and President Juncker wanted to have this instrument ready for this summit is precisely to start discussing on how to implement it together. Therefore, this is the starting point. Right?
Another thing that has been mentioned as well is the fact that you're going to put in about 4 billion in investment and also guarantees, yes, to leverage up to 44 billion, which is a vast amount of money, but a lot of people are still saying it's still not enough.
Well, it's not enough, but I mean, 44 billion, by the way, is a conservative estimate because it is the average. And certainly the factor of leverage that we can have in certain countries more solid, like Ethiopia, for example, is much bigger than in other countries like Niger, for example. So therefore, you know, is an average, could be more. It will be more, by the way. Now, this is what we can do today when we have decided to set up, and we are pooling the money in order to have a reasonable budget for the next couple of years. But if this instrument is taken off, we are ready to put other resources right now in order to, let's say, to develop it further. But we don't want to disinvest from ongoing programs, for example, which are helping countries in investing in education, in healthcare, in other infrastructure programs. So therefore, I think we have this amount of money which was available, let's say. We are ready to increase it, but let's first do it and spend it rightly, and then we'll see how it goes.
Looking ahead, what do you think might be the problems you're going to face on the horizon with this plan?
But I think that we have to change a bit the way in which we are relating in identification of project and program. You know, it is true that so far it has been very often a question between institution and government, or with the civil society as an actor of this. Now, I think that if we want to be effective and if we want to catch the changes which are ongoing, we have to turn that of whole of Africa and whole of Europe. Business communities, you know, institutions, local authorities, civil society of all kind, youth, women. So should be the result of something which is not just conceived among government or in secret rooms for business or multinational. No, should something which should mobilize. In particular, on the African side, and we said that very clearly in this meeting, in this business forum. I mean, the youth must take in their hand their destiny. Start-up financing, small and medium enterprises. You know, we set up with the African Development Bank this Boost Africa project, which is precisely a way to de-risk not the big investment, but to de-risk the ideas which in other parts of the world were born in a garage and then turned to be big business, like Facebook and others. You know, there is a lot of garage here in Africa where ideas are also growing up. Let's give them the mean in order to turn that into business. We are doing this, and therefore we are trying to involve everybody. If this is decided just by a government, this will never happen. It requires more space also for people to think alone, to think in free terms, and therefore to present projects. We have to respect to set up the means. Startup are one of the most big opportunities that we have.
It's laudable in many ways that you're saying you want to empower particularly women and the youth, which is a growing number of people on this continent. If there's any lessons in the economies of Africa, one of the most difficult things is to get wealth to trickle down from the top to the very bottom. How are you going to try to do that?
I think you know that we have to be altogether less paternalist, including African government, vis-à-vis their own civil society, vis-à-vis their own youth. We also have to be less paternalist in the sense of believing that we know what are the right things to do, first point. Second, I think that here we will arrive to a big challenge, which is the one of good governance, meaning administration which are to the service of the people, transparent, taxation system which are affordable, which are allowing national resources to mobilize. And we have also to stop thinking as a donor, as somebody which is, let's say, exporting for the sake of others' health. We have to think in terms of partnership. It's a bit our principle, but sometimes we're not very consistent. You know, we're teaching and saying, no, partner, because we are sharing the same opportunity and the same risk. Mediterranean is in the middle. Too many people are dying for that. Too many people are dying believing that there were two worlds. We are living in one single world, which is a global world with threats and opportunity. We are so close that we have to deal with all that, with all our societies together. It should be a bit the message out of this summit, you know, to start this new partnership, which is a bit more about equal, which rights and duty mutually respect.
Well, clearly, again, it's laudable. You're talking about you want to support good governance on this continent. I don't think there's anybody in business who disagree with you there, but you have to accept in the 21st century it's still struggling, and we have leaders who are overstaying, we have governments that are not free. How are you going to handle that?
Let's say, I spoke about good governance. I didn't speak about the Westminster democracy. I think that also here, our values are based on, let's say, Westminster democracy, or the best proxy, you know, and I think that it produces results. There are also different paths to grow towards more democracy. I insisted on good governance on purpose, because I don't believe that while we should promote our value in our action, we should not teach anybody, and therefore we should convince, we should work together, and therefore the final result will be the test of people. If people are better off, living better, in more freedom, enjoying welfare and services, therefore we would have done a bit of our common path.
We'll get down to a bit of the nitty-gritty of what you're trying to do. I mean, you're trying to support digitalisation and technology in this investment, which this continent also needs, but One of the things that I found when I investigated the story in Brussels is that a lot of the new companies that are starting up high-tech, they don't employ that many people in what they do.
Well, they do not employ also because they have to invest, and we have to invest more on vocational training, on capacity. The education is intimately linked, first point. Second point, it depends, because it's not a question of employing people on a given digital project, but it's the multiplying effect. For example, e-commerce. E-commerce is a way to put together people which are far away in the countryside, in whatever African country, but which are products which are value added, which can reach the global market. It means people which are connecting in the net, over internet. It means the possibility to have health services which are done through internet. So it's not necessarily the fact to employ people in managing a project, but the number of people which are reached and therefore can then generate economic activity which are based to the services which are supplied by digital application is much huge.
So, all said and done, looking ahead now, what are your hopes, or how much dare you hope for this project, you think? I mean, maybe 5, 10 years' time?
Well, my hope is that this will contribute, and underline contribute, because we must remain, let's say, humble in our approach, contributing to create sustainable jobs. You know, there is every year 10 million of new young people which are entering into the labor market, and there are 3 million of jobs which are created. Now, with the demography which is increasing, you know, if we don't create, if Africa do not create, say, 15, 20 million jobs a year, sustainable, not just a decent job, sustainable job, which can then support the whole society, there will be no hope. I mean, there will be, I don't know what, instability, there will be war, there will be movement of people, there will be more migration, there will be lack of perspective. Therefore, if we can give a contribution to create more sustainable jobs for youth and for women, this would be my great success.
And what do the big pension funds and the big banks in Europe say when you put this idea to them?
Well, so far we are, I mean, pension fund must be prudent by definition, because they're managing money of their own associated, which are to take care of their own solidity and stability. Therefore, by definition, prudent. But we have started contact. They're starting being interested. Therefore, we will see after the first, let's say, portfolios, how this can develop. More than investment portfolio, there could be interest in equity participation. And this is due to the credibility and profitability of the project. We have contact with big foundations like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, very interested, several pension funds and also investment funds. But let's go on and let's grow up. We are not, as European Union, allowed, for example, to launch bonds, Euro bonds in the market. Therefore, we are still working with instruments which are not fully on the financial market. Therefore, let's work. And we work also with the European Investment Bank in order to see whether joining forces will be able also to mobilize European Investment Bank and the European financial institution, Agence Française de Développement, KfW from Germany, FEMU from the Netherlands, the Spanish agency, you know, all together with blending, guarantee and mobilizing European money managed by the Commission and national money which is necessary in order to generate this multiplying factor, can allow physically Europe to pass from billion to trillion tomorrow.
One other question, how influential do you think you might be in encouraging policy changes? I mean, there are a lot of barriers, you know, there's regulations, there's tariffs, there's tax regimes. They can all trip up what you're trying to do. What are you going to say to African governments?
Well, no, I mean, we have policy dialogue all along this. We have the share objective, which are embedded in the SDGs, which are common. So we are not starting now. We are keep discussing about the regulatory reform. We have let's say, a common ground, which is mobilization of domestic resources, which is one of the objectives. You know, we are giving them advice on taxation system or regulatory. Regional integration is our, let's say, big experience, and therefore we are sharing with ECOWAS, with SADC, with others. Now, everybody will move on at his own pace. But there are progress, and regulatory is something fundamental. Eastern African community is already very well integrated. We hope that last countries which have still some hesitation will go on. I mean, talk to Kenya government, talk to Rwandese government. They will say, look, regional integration means common standard, common rules, common tariff, no internal barrier. This is matter for us. Therefore, this is a bit our experience. Sharing our knowledge, they will do it.
Would you ever see a day of Africa with free movement of goods, services and labor in this continent?
Yes, I mean, I believe that, regional where there is more homogeneity normally are suggesting that are the first step towards something which is much bigger. I leave that to the Africans. We can give them our advice when we set up our single market, which has been a huge, let's say, experience. Therefore, they have the objective to set up a common free market at continental level. It's very positive, very positive. But let's not undermine what is done now at regional level, because it works. ECOWAS, it works. Eastern African Community, it works. So, let's build this integrating experience. Let's not go too fast into so big that then. But, an African external common tariff could be very good. A suppression of internal barrier, for example, of regulatory nature is very good. To have a single sky, for example, is very, very possible. To have rules which are allowing the big lorries to go along the roads which are existing is very good. So I think it's a very good project. In our experience, we said let's go up step by step.
So finally, what is your enduring hope for this entire project? What would you say in 5 years' time? It's been a success or otherwise?
We'll see. I believe that Africa has a lot beyond also our, let's say, contribution through this external investment plan. We are contributing also elsewhere. The Europeans are putting every year 20 billion just in development assistance. And as we said, this development assistance will increasingly be spent in order to leverage also private and public investment. I think that Africa has a lot of potentiality and asset already now. So I'm optimistic, because I think there is also a youth which is aware of all this. Let's help in liberating this. Then let's see in 5 years, not only because of this plan, but because of a different way from the Africans to take in hand their destiny. And also to tell all those which are willing to help Africa to do what the Africa needs, and not to be just listening to what big donors or big partners are willing to do. So in this balance, I think I'm fairly optimistic in 5 years that we can do better. But it will take time, it will take time. Therefore, it has taken time for us. Let's also remain reasonable vis-à-vis our African friends.
That was Stefano Manservisi, Director General of the International Cooperation and Development at the European Commission.